Hi there and welcome to 3 Well Steve, and in today's video we're going to talk about trees and how to make them. So these are the three trees that I've made so far, and this particular one is the subject of the video, and there are some differences between the three trees, so I thought I'd, before you look at the main part of the video, I thought I'd get into. So this tree just shows you the sort of the wire armature, and this material on here is air hardened clay, DAS in fact. I've used to thicken up the trunk on this one. If we have a look at this one, it is liquid latex painted over the wires, and then it's earth that I put through a coffee grinder to sort of make it very fine, and I've sprinkled it into the liquid latex, and this has the advantage that you can still bend all the armature bits to try and make them change the shape of the tree if you like. I think it's also had a bit of black spray paint on it just to cover up any bits of metal that might actually be showing through. So when you often look at a tree in real life, although the bark is kind of a brown colour, I guess, against the sun it often looks quite dark. So I think that gives you quite a good representation of how the bark on the tree would look like. And this one here is the one that I'm actually working on in the video. The reason I'm showing this to you now is it's the first one I've ever made, and I just want to show us sort of kind of a key difference. So this one, all the scatter material has been stuck on using a spray contact adhesive. Now what I found was, as I was doing it, it makes it all very kind of stiff, and it still looks good, but I don't know, I don't think it lets enough light through. And you can probably see I've actually painted it, I've lightened it down. Whereas this one, what I've done is, which I think is the better method, I thought I'd share this with you now. This polyfiber mesh, which I've just got from some packaging, you just sort of stretch it out and spray it back, but you'll see that in the video. What I've done is I've sprayed the spray mount actually onto the branches, and I've then sprayed it with very sort of strong hairspray, and this keeps all this material quite a bit lighter, so you can still sort of play around with it and pull it apart and make it change the shape of it. Now I know it's quite a subtle difference, but I think probably on reflection that is a better method than that one. But there's not a lot to pick between them. Obviously this one is probably a bit more permanent. I don't know if in the video I've shown it, but what I've tried to do on this one is pick out the lighter colours using some acrylic paint. So I've just basically brushed a bit of acrylic paint over the top just to sort of lighten areas of it and give it a bit more variety. Anyway, let's get into the video itself and see how we get on. Growing in these pots is a plant called Psiloxys aristata, otherwise known as sea foam, which is a common material for making model railway trees. I've grown these from seed actually, and as you can see, they've got quite a long way to go yet. Hopefully they will make it. But in the meantime, I'm going to try a different method. So let's get into this a bit. So here I have 2 wire armature trees that I've already made, and I'm just going to go through the method of how I made them. So I've got some garden wire. I'm not sure what gauge it is, it's just a big roll of it that I've found in my garage. And what I'm going to do to begin with is cut some lengths off, and I need the tree to be roughly the same size as the other trees. Now these trees might look somewhat large, but they are quite true to scale actually. If you think lots of trees grow to like 60 to 100 feet tall, and your average building is, I don't know, could be like 30 feet tall possibly, so a tree is a lot taller than a building. You often look at model railways and the buildings are bigger than the trees, and I kind of get that because the trees can sort of dominate the landscape, but I quite like the idea of a bigger tree, more true to scale, and the sort of the locomotives actually passing through them. And everything has its place, doesn't it, in the world? You know, everything's sort of a different size and a different scale. And trees are some of the most sort of spectacular things that you actually see out in the countryside. So I think our models should, well, in my own opinion anyway, should kind of reflect that. So anyway, what I'm doing is I'm making some loops of wire. So I'm just getting a length of wire and folding it in half in effect. And these will make all the sort of the main trunk and all the sort of the branches actually sort of radiating out of the tree. So I'm aiming to make quite a few of these loops. I'm probably going to try and make more than I actually need, just in case, so they're handy when I start making the trees. You can see in the background I've got some photographs that I took of the trees during the winter. That I'm kind of basing these on, which are sort of near the Warmly signal box that I've just recently modelled. So I'm going to use 3 types of wire in this. So I've got this, like I said, the garden wire, so a galvanised metal wire. I'm also going to use some copper wire that I've got out of an old TV cable, which is a single strand solid copper wire. And also I'm going to use some multi-strand wire as well to make the sort of finer branches. That's kind of the plan. Let's get the other tree. So now I'm going to twist the wires up and leave a little loop at the top. Once I've got the wires twisted up, what I'll do is I'll snip the loop, but I snip it slightly off center, so one strand ends up slightly bigger than the other strand. And this is quite, just so that this is sort of kind of the end of the branch, if you like, or one of the branches. So just like twist that up. And then once I've got that, I'm going to keep repeating doing this. I'm going to sort of end up with several strands, and I'll sort of push those together. So I'll twist those up together as well. And if you end up, one of the things you can do, I've noticed in other videos that people who make these trees you can do, if they're sort of the bit sticking out at the end is too long, you can bend it back and twist it back on itself, and then you've created a new loop and you cut that, and that creates 2 more branches, and so it goes on. It's quite a tedious process, but you kind of have to look at the photographs and work out how the branches divide. Do they divide at the same point, or do they divide at sort of different points on the trunk, you know, sort of unevenly, if you like? And that's quite important to get the look of the tree correct. And it's just basically a lot of twisting together of strands of wire. As like I say, it's tedious, and also look at the photograph and see look at the shapes and see how they bend, and maybe put sort of little bends in them, you know, just use the pliers to sort of bend them at a slightly sort of sharpish angle, and then straighten them back out again to give you the sort of, so it's not too smooth looking, if you like, so it's got a bit of, it looks like it's grown organically. So I've just sped this up a bit because it does go on and on. I'm getting to the point now where I've got sort of several strands of wire twisted together, and I'm starting to twist the twisted bits of wire together to form a trunk. And then I'm looking at where the tree separates into sub-branches, if you like. So you've got the main trunk, and then you've got sort of like a secondary branch, and then you've got branches that go off of that. If you want, the copper wire is quite handy actually, because what you can do with that, the single strand copper wire, if you've got like 2 bits that you're finding a bit of a problem to actually sort of bind together because it's just got too stiff and too thick, you can just wrap the copper wire around it just to hold them together, because at the end of it you're going to cover it in either clay or latex, and it won't actually show, and also it gives it a little bit of kind of bumpiness, which is quite an attractive feature on a tree. So I'm using this sort of like method of splitting the wire and then looping it back, and then splitting it again, looping it back, and just keep repeating that process. And in the end, you should end up with something that looks vaguely like the tree in the photograph, if you're sort of following the sort of the angles of the branches and how they divide. And of course, the great thing with wire is even when you've finished it, you can still change the shape and bend it in different ways and get it exactly as you want it. So now what I'm doing, I've got some multi-strand copper wire, and I'm just stripping it of the insulation. And what I'll do, once I've got it enough insulation stripped off, I'll just snip it. I'm still doing that in a minute. So I twist it at the end, hold all the strands together, then I cut it. And what I tend to do, on this one I've just stuck it straight to the tree. But as I've gone on, what I tend to do is to split it into 3 amounts of wire. There's quite a few little strands there. And then it's a question of like pulling out 2 bits of the copper strand, twisting it together, splitting it, and then you find the next 2. You roll it around the one that you've just done and split it in a different place, and you end up with these little very small sub branches, and that's actually what you're going to end up sticking your microfiber to create the structure for the leaves to stick on. So the next stage is to apply some liquid latex. So I'm going to try using this brush. It's probably going to end up in a terrific mess, but just going to apply a layer of this liquid latex, and the idea is to basically coat all the metal in this stuff. So that's all the aim is in the first pass. So that's what we're just going to do. We're just going to carefully go through the entire tree and just dab on this rather glutinous mix. But the main advantage of it is that when it dries, it remains flexible, which means that obviously you can still move the branches around without cracking any kind of material that's on top. And also it makes it easier to apply other materials on top of that again to create the bark. So again, it's quite a long process, so I've just sped this up a little bit, and just going to gradually go through the tree and also try and get rid of any little sort of lumps and bubbles that form. So for the next stage, move to my garage. I'm just going to put this lovely mask on. And what I've got here is some potting compost or soil or something. And I'm just popping it in this coffee grinder, which does sound a bit mad. But we're going to put this in this coffee grinder and we're going to give it a good old blast. Just do in a second. Should make a terrific noise, hopefully. So when I remove this lid, you'll see why I've got the mask on. It creates really fine particles of dust. And it's an organic material, so I'm guessing breathing it into your lungs is probably really a terrible idea. So that's why. So the next stage is to actually pour it out, and I'm going to sieve it. So I've got this little sieve. Pop that on top of there, and we're just going to split it into the very sort of fine particles, and still going to get a few sort of bigger particles of bits, organic material. So we're more interested in the fine stuff, so we're just going to pop this through this little sieve, and you'll see why in a minute. So the next stage, I'm going to sped this up a bit again because it takes ages to do this, is to apply more latex on top of the latex we've already put on. I'm going to sprinkle this dust on top of the tree, and what we'll end up with hopefully is something that looks fairly natural and bark-like, and also filling all the little gaps on the bits of wire. And it's worth taking your time doing this, and also at the same time reshaping the branches so that they point in the right directions, because obviously you've been handling it and sometimes it all gets a little bit bent out of shape. So it's definitely a process. So yeah, you keep at this, keep repeating this procedure until you're kind of happy with the result. So I'm just going to pour out a bit more latex. I tried initially mixing the powder with the latex and putting it on that way, but it just gets so clumpy, it's very difficult to do it. So it's much easier just to put on the latex separately and then sprinkle the powder on top. So once you're happy with that, then it's time to move on to the foliage. So what I'm using is a microfiber that I got in some packaging. You can buy microfiber specifically for the job, but it's white microfiber, and I've just sprayed it black. And kind of the trick is to spread it, get it on the branches and spread it out and make it as thin as possible. So that's what I'm doing at the moment. So in this method, I probably discussed this at the beginning of the video. What I'm doing, I'm using a spray mount, just spraying it straight onto the microfiber so it sticks to the branches, and also I can actually stick the leaves on top. So I've got some green clump foliage. It's quite dark, probably darker than I want really. But my theory is that when you look at a tree, you see basically two colours. So you see the leaves in shadow, which is a sort of a dark green colour, and you see the highlights of the leaves, which is a much lighter colour, and that sort of gives you the sort of the look of the clumps of foliage on a tree. So this is kind of the undercolour. So I will be painting the tree later on to bring out some of the sort of the more of the highlights. So it's easier to put the undercolour on first, I would think. I've never done this before, but this is kind of an experiment. And just gradually cover the tree. I think the danger with this is putting too much on, so you can't actually see where it becomes too clumpy, if you like. Yeah. Just as a side note, I've got another tree. I thought we'd try a different technique, so I'm just using some gas modelling clay, and I'm going to use it to actually form the trunk. So I'm just going to put that down there a minute and just wet my fingers and just smooth this onto the trunk. So get little small bits. Handy to keep your fingers wet, and it helps it stick to the wire, because if it's too dry it won't stick to anything. And I just form the shape of the trunk with this stuff, which I'm hoping will save some of the time that I spent on the other tree making the trunk thick, adding layers and layers of latex. I think this might be a little handy shortcut. Actually, on this tree you can see I've used some of the copper wire to bind it together. I've actually covered it with the clay, but if you look a bit earlier on, you can actually see the copper wire bound around it, holding it all together. So hopefully the clay will keep it all in place. So it's just a question of building, again, always for trees, it's just a question of slowly building things up. So I'm just building up some of the sub branches. I'm not going to cover it all in this clay because it goes solid and means you can't move the branches around so much, which could be a bit of a disadvantage. But the advantage is you kind of mould it exactly to the shape that you want. So it's kind of getting there now, probably too near to where I want it to be. Just get rid of some of the lumps, and there we are. Right, so back on the tree again, and I've glued on more microfiber and sprinkled more leaves on. I think probably on reflection a better method would be to spray the branches in the glue, stick the microfiber on, and then use something like hairspray to stick leaves on. I think it would let more light in. It's gone a bit solid for my liking, but I think I can rectify it by sort of waiting for it to dry and tearing it slightly. but it looks pretty good. I'm not too displeased with it, but it is a first attempt, so I'm not expecting it to go perfectly this time. So if you're wondering what all the background noise is, it's my next door neighbour, who's a very talented car mechanic, and is at the moment basically reducing a car to its component parts. Anyway, back to the tree. What I'm doing now is I'm picking out, got some lighter green, and I'm picking out the tops of the foliage in a, just to sort of give it a highlight. So it's just a question of using some quite thick acrylic paint and just dabbing it on. And you can just, this is a whole art. I mean, this is just a little bit I'm doing here, but you can sort of really look at, like a bit like an oil painter would, I guess, you know, look at a tree and see all the different colours in it. So rather like an oil painting, so I kind of go in dark to light, so that the actual colour of the foliage is quite a dark green. So I've gone for a medium green, and now I'm putting a sort of a slightly more yellowy green just to pick the tops of the leaves out. And that's kind of finished. It looks, I'm pretty happy with that actually. I think it's come out pretty well. And it looks quite good in the scene. When we've got all the other trees and all the other bits and pieces in, it will start to come together. So yeah, this scene needs 3 main trees and probably some less detailed trees to form up a background. Anyway, looks like we've come to the end of another video, so thank you for watching, and I will see you on the next one. Bye.